Good afternoon, good evening, LinkedIn friends, Value First Nation. Welcome to another episode of Value First Data. Here with Klemen and Casey. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday, back again.
Back again. What have we learned so far talking about unified customer views?
Don't skip the basics.
That the foundation is so critical, and people wanting to like rush ahead is not going to add value in the way that they hope. But isn't that true of like so many things?
I was just wanting to say, it's not probably only for the unified customer view, but for CRM in general or everything. It's just a tool at the end of the day that should support the business. Not, don't start with the tool. Start with what you want to have and what's the goal, and then when you implement it, it will work and it will be adopted.
I think a lot of times in unified customer view is not an exception to this, but a lot of times I think people are implementing these things. You're implementing the unified customer view because you want to figure something out. You want to figure out how to better define your audience, or you want to, you have this end result in mind and you think that the unified customer view is what's going to get you there, but it's the foundations for that, I think, that are really the most important piece. And so that's why I think people are rushing, because they're like, well, I need to get this view so that I can answer all these fundamental questions. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I can't build you a view if you can't tell me what we should be viewing.
Yeah. And I think like what I usually hear is very rarely like the view and like the score or the one piece of information or clean data or like these things that traditionally have been very hard to do it in a vacuum or before the rest of the system is set up or before you bring in the other people on the team that need input or will have input into how that's being built. So when I'm hearing like the basics, it's definitely been like who's involved, who needs like unified views, what do they need, and bringing in leaders to drive this initiative. Since last week, there's been a few different conversations where it's like, even as a consultant, like there's an interesting thing happening right now. Everybody talks about time to value. And meanwhile, people are very wary of taking 3 months to go through discovery, understand the business, and then maybe after 3 months of paying an agency, now we get to see results. Now we get to start executing. So there's this push-pull between that and like quick wins. We're finding that people are okay with a documented customer view as a quick win. But it feels really unnatural because it's not anything itself that's going to create another lead or close another deal. But it's like this backdoor approach to enabling your damn team, right? And since you don't want to make time for specific training, if we call anything like training, right now it's like, all right, priority like 4 or 5, maybe we'll make some time for it, but we never do. So it's like, let's just get some stuff out the door and we'll get to the training later. And then we never get to it. It's been interesting over the past week to see that and have to stumble into it, right? It should be at this point, even I need to build the habit of like, all right, this is how engagements start. Like instead of discovery, right? We can get that discovery done through this very tangible like outcome that is the unified customer view. And it's really suited to whatever department or whatever set of users are asking like to get help with HubSpot.
Where I see challenges in people I talk to is, as you said, it takes time and patience to get through that. Where everyone is, no, I know that workflow is broken because it's messing up my HubSpot, so I'll just make a quick fix of it, even though no matter how bad that fix is, and tomorrow we'll talk about the same workflow doing something else wrong because the concept of a workflow is wrong. It hurts when you try to convince no, let's just stop for a day to set it up correctly, and I know to me they don't listen often. I keep trying. I keep asking to have a strategic discussion because that's how you should fix it. There's no way around. There's no quick win if you need to strategically align things. That's why I said no. You need to not skip the basics. Yeah, we're getting there.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, so Chris, you and I had a little bit of a back and forth on this just this week, where we were proposing the unified customer view as a quick win, and I was really struggling with that being a quick win because it felt like a step backwards from the request. I acknowledge that it's not necessarily a step backwards, or I mean, maybe even it's a foundational step that if we skip, it doesn't matter what the rest of the stuff that we do is going to be not done as efficiently because we don't have the foundations. I don't know. Can you speak to that at all? Like, what did you tell me?
Yeah, I mean, so much of this is getting to the point where we can have productive conversations that we need to have, and without that, some kind of immovable thing that we've decided on together, which can be a unified customer view. Like it's just so easy to get buried in the tool and the tactics. And I was just talking about this with Trisha. Like you start to go from tactics perspective. Okay, we need more leads. We need to send an email out. Who do we need to send an email out to? This job title. Oh, we don't have that data. Okay, let's go get it. Oh, what about like some of them call themselves chief technical officers, some information officers, there's data officers. They all kind of, okay, let's build a workflow that brings them all together and handles all the different scenarios. And then we're going to go like build a LinkedIn scraper so that we can bring in all that data, and then we'll be ready. And then we send the email out. And it's like, oh, we didn't have this data ready, so we can't see if the email even is good enough. So let's add that property. And now we can build our report, and it's like starts to come like immediate tech debt, basically. Right? Because the goal was like more leads, or we need to get the email out. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And what we're trying to do, like the actual outcome, is getting the salespeople, more qualified opportunities, right? And helping them with visibility, right? And that's why like we have to change the report or change the way the email looks, like to create that data so that they can make sense of what the email opened. Like, okay, that person opened that email. If I don't see any other data, I don't know. That doesn't help me, right? So then we start to build scores and all these other shortcuts. So I think we certainly have to be careful saying like, okay, unified customer views like the answer like to all those goals. But what it is it will give us a clear path, because we'll know right away we're either 10% of the way there, or 50% of the way there, or 80% of the way there. And we know that getting 100% is the goal, and we should not be doing things that do not start to close that gap.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we put people in those situations, start to get real innovative. Like, oh, well, this thing actually is over here. And if we just move it over here now we're like an extra 10% of the way there. I think that's for humans. If we start to enlist help from AI, but just taking a screenshot of that view and asking Breeze, hey, do we have any data like in the portal that might fill in this gap? Right? There's intent data all over the place. There's engagement data all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of takes it out of the hands of the, subjective humans that are in their different roles. Right? But I think that's why, like, the documentation of the unified customer view is the quick win. Not that we actually have achieved it, right?
That's a moving target, probably. But
I think that's a good way to put it. Like, it's always a moving target, right? And we had to be able to sit down and get people to sit down and tell us what they actually need to support the goal.
I think that's fair, because I think of the amount of projects I've worked on, and I've scoped, someone says, hello, I would like you to build out this nurture series. And I say, amazing, I got you, we'll do it. And then as soon as you start setting it up, you realize, oh, your email domain's not set up. Oh, you're who are we sending this to? We don't have any job titles, but you said you wanted to send this to IT directors, but we don't have job titles for anyone. What do you mean? So yeah, I think, like you said, there's so many. I think a lot of times you open up any tech project and you think you know what you're doing, and then you get in there and you don't know what you don't know. And so the unified view as a starting point gets everyone on the baseline, because then maybe you're like, wait, why are we even targeting IT job titles? That's not relevant to anyone who buys your stuff. Like, what are we even doing here? And so a lot of that can be found up front.
Yeah. I think it sounds like it's the difference between the gap between us getting the tactic done in the data and getting the view done in the data, right? Because automation starts to come up where it's like, oh man, we don't have any job titles. We need to get this email out though. Okay, let's pull down data. And now based on this activity that's very focused, we're going to build workflows that start to normalize that data because it's brought in, right? And because we don't want to ask our sales team to fill in like 200 contacts like worth of data, even though we know they have the context. We know they could, right? But it's time intensive and like they got to be selling, right? If we give them like a better reason than to just send out emails that maybe will create some leads that we know probably aren't that great and got to qualify. And now those sales are always harder than the referral sale that comes in. Like, we got to create this space where teams can align on what the CRM is actually supposed to be providing. Yeah, it's that simple. I mean, I think I just described what usually happens when we go right to, like, the reason we get to automation, right, quickly, is we're trying to do something, and we need that data instead of putting the team in a position to like understand that data and then take action on it. It's almost like, well, HubSpot needs the data, so that's why we need to automate it.
Yes.
Not a good place to be.
Just because we can does not mean.
And related to that, I was just posting today about deduplication. I think it's somewhat related to that discussion. We're often asked, hey, yes, we have a lot of duplicates. Can you help us dedupe that? And I'm always pushing back. No, the first question is not let's dedupe. It's first understand the data sources, understand what you want to do, how you want to have the data model work. Do you have parent-child relationships between companies? And without knowing that, there's no way you can be successful with deduplication of contacts and companies. There's just no way. We'll be merging records where in a week you'll be pissed off because we merged them, because they should not be merged. There is no way back. So yeah, that understanding of the business is really important to do any meaningful work.
Yeah, that reminds me of another client conversation where they understand they need to unify the data, right? But there's all these systems, and the one that's considered the source of truth because it has all the logins has the least amount of information in it, right? So what happens is we export that data and then bring it into the other systems that send out the emails, and we do that over and over and over. And we started we just started accepting that was the source of truth, and we started technical solutioning for how we're going to connect that data. And we hadn't even confirmed that was the starting data set yet, right? And you start solutioning, and again, it's so easy to just get buried in the tool conversation, because then it depends on what tool it's coming from and how we're going to connect, how can we even connect, right? And meanwhile, the data might be sitting in another place because often the other teams need that data, or they've already brought it in, right? And so yeah, avoiding that solutioning, because when you do get it right, again, the power of HubSpot should be the automation, right? So it's easy to understand why people just go right there. But let's look at some examples. So up to now, so we did the work of making sure we understood what teams are involved and what they need to see, which properties have gotten added to the system to support that, including associations between records. I don't think we talked about that much this week. Now we can get to the automation.
Which can work only if you did the first steps. Otherwise,
right,
it will just amplify the mess you included in everything.
Yeah, and it says these workflows keep your customer context current without manual data entry. So that doesn't mean without ever doing manual data entry. Right, you got to do that part first. That's why I impress upon the importance of a salesperson doing the association of records, at least a couple of times before you just say, oh, we gotta associate this to deals, and we gotta associate buying role and decision maker. Got to make sure all that stuff is automated because it's tedious, and we shouldn't ask our salespeople to do that. The salesperson themselves are the source of truth of that relationship between all of those things. So if you don't have them do that at least once or twice, like you end up doing that, creating a mess. They don't trust the data, and now they're not going to use the system.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at workflows here. I'm not a workflow pro. I would love some other thoughts on what we're seeing on the screen here.
I have a couple of, and I'm trying not to I think my brain often works like a HubSpot workflow, like that. I'm like your polar opposite in that way. Like all I know is HubSpot workflows. Taylor Swift and HubSpot workflows. That's it. That's the only thing going on up here.
That's scary.
It's a scary world.
But I've accepted it at this point.
So I'm trying not to get like too in the weeds, because like I'm like my brain is like, and what's what? How do you organize this? What's this? Blah blah blah. But how much should someone be tailoring these essential workflows for their business, or are these, context is associated with a deal at any stage? Like, how much nuance is there? Or do these work?
Click the button, Klemen. Carrot. Let's do the first one, the researcher. So I think the first step is understanding, like, when we can, like all the pipeline stages in HubSpot, and any pipeline and any object, we're trying to automate that movement, either moving the stages or having the stages like be the thing you click and then it fills out or creates a bunch of other data based on that. So when we say like moving researcher, buyer, value creator here, like I think that's pretty common in terms of life cycle stage movement is a place we often start when it comes to workflows. Fair?
Yeah.
So as you see these implementation steps, I'd love for you to just talk through the trigger, the action. Are these things you normally would see in a workflow like this?
I don't trigger a lot of workflows off of like I don't trigger a lot of workflows like this based on have they visited this page in a certain period of time. The risk here in my head is like if someone is currently in the buyer stage, then they might be visiting our website a lot, like, making sure that we're preventing them from like flipping back. But as you know, I would probably, for that researcher one, use lead scoring to measure their recent engagement level. And then that I would trigger it based on the lead score. But with that being said, like, it doesn't matter. Probably not. I made a post just today about, on the call-in show last week, you, Chris, George, and I all had different answers to the same question, and all of those answers worked, I think, in the same way. While I may build this as a lead score, that doesn't mean it doesn't work as its own trigger. I don't like the word trigger. I know I've said this before. It's just when I say it too much.
I won't go for the obvious joke there.
That's because you can only work within workflows.
Like, you can say it once or twice and it feels fine, but once I start like saying it multiple times, I'm like, oh my god, this is a big word in my mouth.
I think what we're seeing now also, it doesn't have to be one or the other. right? Like there's context all over the place. And the thing that I want to point out is that, like, if we don't know what researcher means when we see it on the view, right, it doesn't matter if we did a bunch of work to move, like, and automate the researcher stage. This is why getting teams together to say, okay, is knowledge base, like the way our knowledge base is set up, we think that it's an obvious candidate for, like, somebody's researching. Like, sales team, has somebody ever mentioned knowledge base articles, like, on their journey to becoming a qualified, buyer? I think in some spaces it's probably, that could definitely be a thing, like when it's technical, kind of products and you need to really understand how they work. But that's just, one space, right? But I think that's a good framework here. Like, the goal of, like, what are we keeping automated? What data are we trying to keep maintained? And that's, data that tells us who they are and where they are in the journey.
And what probably changes are, which websites are relevant for which business based on what you have, where you see people walking around and then converting. But I think it's a combination, of kind of those two, that you can claim someone is at least a researcher.
Yep. Anything else? I think these are pretty straightforward in terms of, all right, so the core, we're talking about the core data here, which is trying to sum up in a stage, like, where somebody is in their journey and what they've already done, like, to get there, right?
Does it matter? And does it matter in these who the person is? Like, does any of, like, the qualifying data matter here? Which is probably mostly relevant for a researcher.
I would argue not, because someone can be a researcher even though they don't fit your ICP criteria. So you might not qualify it for you to bother investing, sales reps resources, but they're still a researcher. So I would treat that separately.
Yeah, I think so. Like, and again, I think we're starting with the foundation here. Like, if we have to choose one thing, right? And so below this, it says recommended workflows. Like, add these once the essentials are working, right?
As a technical implementation question that is in my mind here, is it better to have value path stage as a custom property, or modify lifecycle stages properties? I guess you have a lot of conversations around that, Chris. I'm really curious where you currently are with that. I see pros and cons, why one or the other. So I don't know what's the right answer.
So what are the pros to not changing the lifecycle stage property themselves?
There are some baked in automations within HubSpot, which you can leave as is. Because historically those MQLs, SQLs were used. Let's put aside the discussion how useful that is, but these are the terms that are used across the market. So people think they understand what it means. So let them still be there. Build, value path stages on top of it or in parallel. So then the transition is easier. So they can still use both. KPIs in the past were based on those lifecycle stages, so that you don't broke historical data. But then you have two separate properties which you need to maintain for somewhat the same reason.
I think the advantage is, and this is just transparently, I think the advantage is from a change management perspective, like taking a step instead of just like demolishing the house.
Yeah, I think I'm good with change management excuses and the humans won't like it excuses. I'm not okay with this is how HubSpot works, like excuses. Especially now, there's so many ways that we can recreate that level of visibility, right? It's just a part of the reason why we're here is because if we want to report on lifecycle stages in HubSpot, it has to work like this. It never works like this. So then we start building processes and like measuring KPIs like on that stuff. I think this also highlights though, it's harder to optimize like into this in terms of like, in the best case scenario, you're choosing transformation over optimization. Right, we can definitely put them next to each other, but I'm interested in what kind of outcomes we're going to see in terms of it doing anything more than making it super obvious about why the old way is not good. It's going to be hard to say like, here's a researcher, and then comparing it to MQL and SQL, it's just like different categories. So as long as there's awareness around, like, you can get more information and context with the separation, I think. But you also have to be careful, like, well, I'm measured on MQLs, like not researchers. So I don't care about that data, or we're not going to work to like define that stuff. So I think starting out in a fresh portal, definitely putting in like value path as the life cycle stages. But I think it's fair to say, like, based on the humans involved, you really have to manage expectations there.
So in an older HubSpot, start with two properties and then collide.
Again, it's not about the HubSpot, Klemen.
I know, but
it's about the humans using HubSpot, because I've also been surprised by how quick some people have been to embrace like this language, right? So I think it's a conversation, again, coming back to like, okay, this is the unified customer view. Imagine it says this versus this, whereas this says researcher, and this one says MQL. Which one needs more context next to it, right? And I think just being willing to have those conversations, because it's for me, it's great. Like when I start to get a sense that they don't like the words that they're saying, like lead MQL, and just the they know it hasn't been great, right? That's the opening to say, like, well, what about this? Right? We're not going to rip everything out from under you, but we at least need to consider, like, watch how much easier this view gets when we start changing these words, right? Which again, like, you can't get there unless you've already decided like what you want the view like to be, right? Let's look at some of these recommended workflows before, unless you guys want to dig in to these other stages.
These are the essentials. So
Yeah, because these
We have
recommended.
to pretend like we're gonna get through like a single page of this. Engagement level calculation. I just don't know for that first. I don't know if that first one, a workflow, is the most efficient way of doing this, but I could be wrong. I haven't built a workflow like this.
okay, so just say it. It should be lead scoring.
It should be a score. Why are we building workflows to do scores? Chris hates scores so much. He's proposing workflows, which he also doesn't like, instead.
Oh man, let's see. How do I qualify this or justify it? No, I think you're right. Having said that, we have had to create workflows in the past to go beyond just contact and company fit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was like last year.
Yeah.
Before the new scores came out. So
yeah, new scores were like February of last year ish, I think.
So now that we have those new scores, like how has that been different in terms of I think it sounds like we agree that engagement level scores are a good idea, like right next to that stage label.
Yeah, I mean, I could set that up as a score pretty quickly to see how much activity they've had in a period of time. The labels themselves, I think there's only room for kind of 3 engagement score labels. So if you wanted like 4, you might still. And sometimes I do still translate the out of the box labels into, I like use a workflow to translate the out of the box labels into something that's more readable for humans, like, dormant or something like that. But that's all possible. Then active service counts when the service changes. What are service counts? I don't know if I understand those words.
Like deliverables.
Okay. So how many like
how many licenses, like how much, like how active is that company with your business?
And that's what pretty much those first 2 are really measuring. And then the last one's just measuring, or not measuring anything. The last one's just ownership.
And then we have our favorite at the end here, advanced workflows.
I did. Don't worry. I did see that you had a account health calculation workflow. I mean, I don't know. I'm not even totally like opposed to building these as workflows. Just in, I mean, I've said to you, Chris, this week, I've said I think one of the biggest problems people have with scores is that they try to make them more complicated than they need to be. And with both of the scores, if you will, that you build, it's pretty much like, is this true? Then hot. If this is true, then medium. And I think I don't really understand why scores need to be any more complicated than like that. I think because scores can be more complicated, people build out this like complex web of logic where you're a high intent if you've gone to this page on a Tuesday and so on. But
one of our biggest deals came in on a Tuesday, Casey.
Causation or correlation? Everyone, causation or correlation? Did they visit your website? Like, have they engaged with you this week? I oftentimes don't think it has to be a whole. Most HubSpot instances that I've worked in, we're not talking data sets so large that if you don't look at, engagement this week, it's going to bury you.
Do you think when the concept of automation and like automatic maintenance of data comes up, people think of scores?
No.
Sounds like maybe they should.
Maybe they should. And once again, I have made this session about scoring. My job here is done. Another week.
Can you get you a better mic so you could drop it? I think this last one, like, I think we're going to get to a place where, again, if we can give the guardrails to AI, there will be like a few different data points, like an overall score of everything that they're doing. Like, because transcripts, right? Transcripts are going to show like, okay, they saw a bunch of pages. They did this kind of engagement in 5 days, right? Did they say anything about it on the call? And if not, like, should that be important? Because when it does have an impact, when it does create, they will guarantee say something about it, like on the call.
But even call itself just, increases the health tremendously, and then understanding what was discussed in a call is just a next level that is possible. And from what I am seeing with maybe a pushback on the workflows, as the implementation way of incorporating that, building a workflow with that complexity, I mean, good luck anyone understanding what's happening. It should be a code, I guess, or a lead score or a code step in a workflow or somewhere, because then it's only this, and anyone can understand that. But if that translates into 50 branches, something will go wrong, and no one will understand it. And then we're talking.
And then I have the limits. And so I got to build this like special time delay stuff that then I can just let it all run. And it's great. And it's the prettiest little workflow that you've ever seen. It's actually a giant workflow.
And then you have, an urgent firefighting call evening on a Friday. Hey, we just figured out marketing is telling us 50 MQLs are lost in that workflow, which should route leads to the right reps. Why is that so? I mean, because of that workflow. because you didn't think through correctly. You didn't fix it. You just added delay from 2 to 5 minutes. It's not gonna fix it.
And
Did we learn anything today?
Chris hates sport.
Workflow is not always the right answer, but lead scoring is. Right, Kate?
Thank you. That is what. What did we learn today? That automation. The automation is there, is I think one thing I learned. Actually, I've talked to you a lot about the value paths, and one thing I've internally struggled with is like, how do I know if someone's a value creator, like, or if they're, when do these things change? And I think, to follow my own advice, I think I was overcomplicating it. Maybe it doesn't need to be so complicated. Chill out.
Yeah, I think at the end of the top of the view here, it says, so your team always has accurate information.
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal.
Mm-hmm.
And if you feel like you're in a spot where you're having to build 15, 20 workflows, maybe you need to rethink of what that accurate information looks like. And again, we get there by not having unified customer view, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're like, oh, I want this data, and I want this data, and I want this data,
Mm-hmm.
right? And now, I think with these views, you can give AI a very clear picture of what accurate information looks like. And with one run, it can look at the meetings, the emails, and give you the most accurate picture you've ever seen. Good to understand how we can overcomplicate it. I think we highlighted the complexity of, like, you want to understand these outcomes that the workflows are getting you, but automation, like through workflows, is not always the best way to get there. So until next week.
See you next week. We have
Have a
stuff
great
to do.
week, everybody.
Take care.